vacation. How's it feel, Anthony?
I've been sitting here, haven't moved, waiting for you. So it's been 10 days of just sitting here.
Most interesting 10 days of his life.
I'm Anthony. Welcome to No Vacancy Live. That's my friend Glenn.
You're watching the #1 show in hospitality. Hey everybody, welcome back to No Vacancy Live, the #1 podcast video show in hospitality. That's Anthony Melcuri. I'm Glenn Hausman, and I'm feeling refreshed after a great week off, celebrating but crying about the last days of summer. How are you, man?
Great. I was just telling Glenn off camera that Glenn goes into cocoon and no one can find him.
Seriously. Dude, I felt like I was one of those monks from, the Middle Ages or something that took a vow of silence. I don't think I talked to anyone for days. I happen to have been alone. My wife took my kids to two different colleges. So it was so much fun not talking to anyone for a few days, but I still regret the large size popcorn I had at the movie.
So how much? Oh no, never regret that. That is legally allowed.
I know.
Did you? How many times did you shower last week?
Let me see. I jumped in the pool several times.
So before we get started with our fabulous guest, I think it's very, very appropriate to take this moment to just a shout out to all our friends at Margaritaville. And to all friends around the world that are mourning Jimmy Buffett.
Yep.
And what's wonderful, excuse the sirens in the background, what's wonderful is that he really was front page news around the world. And because of his career and because of the way he went about his business, like, yes, he was in the front, but like from a musician and like in popular culture, I didn't know if he would get his due. So it was really great. Unfortunately, he passed, but it was really great to see that people came out for him and that he was front page news.
Yeah, absolutely. I was completely shocked and devastated. I woke up Saturday morning to blink on my iPad with the note and like, wow, I had no idea. I didn't know this was expected. So again, my heartfelt condolences out to everybody in the Margaritaville family. Jimmy Buffett, for me, was influential when I was really developing my musical taste. And I got into him in the mid-'80s, particularly early on in college. One of the things I loved about him was how his sense of positivity is in his infectious energy. And whether you happen to be in a meet and greet with him alone or where I saw many times at the incredible Jones Beach Amphitheater here on Long Island, you felt that positivity, you felt that energy, and everything just felt great. And he was kind of like that conduit to that happy place that we all need to find in ourselves.
Talk about conduit. He was a conduit to my family. Tell that story.
Oh, what? Oh, you mean when I met your family at the concert? Well, one of the benefits of being in our position is every time Jimmy Buffett would play at the local theater, we'd be able to get comp tickets to it and go with folks there. Well, Anthony didn't go, and I went, and I got to hang out with his family one night. I think that was like 2019 or something.
Yeah, my kids still talk about that, and they all say he's such a nice guy.
And might I add, my kids, that was their first real concert that I took my twin boys to as well. So a lot of real special memories for me, my family, and our industry.
And a shout out to Tamara, who always hooks us up. And, I know there's heavy hearts at Margaritaville. So our condolences. And, I've been very fortunate to see a private concert with him at one of the hotels. I was very, very fortunate to do a show last month or 2 months ago at his hotel in Hollywood. And, when people say he's a vibe, he's a vibe.
Yep.
And I'm sure he's vibing up there. And my daughter said that how appropriate for him to pass around, Labor Day on when everybody's out and about and everybody's getting their Jimmy Buffett on. She's like, it was like he planned it.
God bless him. And what a great exit strategy, though. Much better than like in the middle of February, I would say.
What a great exit strategy.
Listen, we can only hope for something like that.
Again, I've said this before, I will say it again. He was a brand. And people talk about building a brand, and you got to live your brand, and we're going to talk to Groom Guy, and I'm sure he lives his brand. And you can putting a brand out there and not really feeling it doesn't work just to make money. And man, he made his brand come alive.
That's right. And on Thursday's show, we're doing an Ask Anthony and Glenn episode. So, Anthony, maybe we should talk about Margaritaville and its impact on the hospitality industry and what a great understanding of branding it really is. So we'll get to that. But one of the things that I'd like to move on and talk about is there's so many great entrepreneurs out there, and it's so incumbent upon folks that have been successful to try to bring those along and give them some exposure and give them some advice and help. And we found one great young entrepreneur that I'm excited to be able to feature today. And his name is Darius Davie. And he's the founder of Groom Guy. They're a luxury wellness brand focusing on quality products and services, obviously for men's grooming. Although now I'm thinking of starting another business where I could stand in at weddings and I could be the groom guy. If the groom gets a little uncomfortable and needs to stand in, that'll be my thing. But he's been partnered with IHG's Vignette Collection at the Yours Truly Hotel and recently opened a new location at the PGA National Resort. How cool is that? Bringing back grooming to hotels everywhere. Darius Davie of the Groom Guy. Welcome, man.
How you doing? Thank you, folks, for having me today. I really appreciate it.
Okay, let's get the jokes out of the way. No, I don't need your services unless you shine heads. Then I do.
We can make some magic, man.
Yeah.
You start. You can grow hair on my head. You know what? Even if you could, I wouldn't do it.
Well, see, I don't want to make full promises here with Groom Guy. However, we can definitely give you something with some goods to take home. Grooming products for sure. Right? Looking good and smelling good is synonymous.
That's right.
Oh, I like the idea of smelling good. I could use that in my life, and it's definitely not the theme that I followed last week when I was living out here alone. So, Darius, tell me a little bit about how you got this started so people could understand. Because one of the issues I have is the idea of entrepreneurism is so great. And for me, when I became an entrepreneur, it wasn't like I just woke up one day and I said, I'm going to do it. Right? It really took for me in my journey more than a year to leave the company I worked for and start this business. So that was pretty scary for me. What was that process and journey for you like even before day one?
Yeah, so similarly, it was, I knew I've always had an entrepreneurial appetite, right? At a very young age, at about 14, 15, is when I went to camp, essentially, to learn about business. So I had some fundamentals there, but it wasn't up until recently, about 6 years ago, where I fully started to, take all of those skills that I've learned and fully project that into my passion project. And not only passion project, but now an actual full-fledged business, which is Groom Guy. So starting out as a men's hairstylist for many years was kind of the entry point. It gave me a good opportunity to learn the landscape, to figure out where the holes were, but most importantly, to identify a need. And so when I started to do some history on the industry of hair, while doing history in the industry of hotels, I realized there was something there. A light bulb kind of went off.
Right. Because if you're, for the people that don't know, it seems like in the early history of hotels in the 1900s, every single property, because they were all big fancy city resorts, for example, had that salon, the resorts too, right, Darius?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I started to do that research, do a deep dive, understand some of the most prominent barbers as well as owners and entrepreneurs, and quickly realized that what was going on, especially over the last couple of years with our global pandemic, that there was a unique need. A unique need that discussed the, self-care, health and wellness operation of hospitality. And so with history mixed in with my own kind of creative appetite, Groom Guy was born, and it was born out of what was essentially a pop-up idea for the. So
did you have a passion for this, or did you just identify an opportunity and said, I'm in on this?
Well, Glenn, the first things first, I have a passion for people. I have a passion for connections. I have a passion for healthy and fruitful connections. And so the chair has been such a unique space. I make this joke all the time. I'm like a walking LinkedIn, right? Because you meet so many people. Similarly to hotels, right? And so with that ability to want to do that, I knew there was a space there that I wanted to kind of expand upon.
I like that. And I like the name too, particularly since what you just said, because I don't know what it's like down by where you are, but up here in the New York, New Jersey area, it was like, hey, I got a guy, for whatever it is. I got a groom guy. I got a guy that'll come fix your fridge. That sort of thing.
Exactly, but that same language is used in business travel. So,
right,
which a large portion of our customer base.
Right. All right. So, why do you feel that there is a need for this particular service in hotels today? We already discussed how it used to be, but there's a reason why it kind of went away, right? Things change in society. Why is now the time for it to come back? And why do you think you have some opportunity there? And then we'll get into the specifics of how you actually created opportunity for yourself.
Glenn, I must say there's a uniqueness that comes with the actual business of the barbershop. Right? The ability to have someone in the chair and have a repeat customer, right? The ability to then introduce them to all the other local businesses, or just foster that relationship. It was something powerful about that. And so I knew that there was a love between the barbershop that also needed to be modernized, right? We had to think ahead a little bit. Like, where do we go 20 years from now, 50 years from now with this industry? And so there was one space where, you have your brick and mortars, but for the hotels, they're trying to look for new spaces to connect with community, right? They're trying to find new high level ways to engage with their hotel guests and ultimately enhance their experiences. So you have all of these cool amenities, you have your fitness center,
right?
You have your unique bar, but there was a pocket right somewhere where we were able to find that the barbershop can coexist right with all these other amenities in the hotel space. And that's what we see ourselves now, right?
Right. Yeah. And Darius, that makes a lot of sense, because what you're doing is you have a product and an opportunity that appeals both to those staying within the hotel and, as you mentioned, that local community. And I think that's really the key of what we talk about here in the hospitality industry, is being a conduit to that community in new and interesting ways. Darius, we talk about that with food all the time on here, but we've never spoken about actually some of the retail elements that could go into a hotel that engage you in the community, right? I was just at the Peabody Hotel in Memphis, for example, and the clothier that used to dress Elvis just moved into that hotel. So classic Memphis hotel, classic Memphis clothier getting together, and it's like a 1 = 3 kind of a scenario. So it looked like Anthony was having a little issue in the community, but he's back now. We'll bring him back in any second over here. Boom, there he is.
Yeah, which interesting. Thank you for that, Glenn. I heard it. So I went outside my house, and I thought it was my neighbor on the right of me, who unfortunately is very ill. But I came out, it was my neighbor on the left, who's also not in good shape, and she fell, and thank God she's going to be okay. But I just want to check on her. So thank you for that.
Yeah, of course. So to catch you up, we've been talking about the spirit of entrepreneurism and all of that, and how Darius is bringing in a product that really connects the community to the hotel and the hotel to the community.
Yeah, so, I heard. I kept my headphones on.
Hey, that's cool. All right, so great. Sorry, that's for people just tuning in, because who doesn't tune in 13 minutes into a podcast, right?
But one of the questions I have for you. Logos are big for me. Like, to me, logos are great, and they're critical. How did you come up with your logo?
It all starts with finding great talent, right? So funny enough, I found someone online, a young man based out of St. Louis. I'm sorry, not St. Louis, Grand Rapids, Michigan, through a friend of mine. And he was super excited about the idea. And we were able to speak early about what the brand vision, what I wanted it to look like, what I wanted it to feel like. And I liked working with him, particularly because he was very young. He's probably 18. And at the time, he was an exciting designer to be working with Chrysler and doing some really cool projects.
Wow.
So, you know what? I think you're the person for it. And so with some music.
When I think of Chrysler, I definitely think of the teenage mind. That's for sure. Oh, wait, I think about my great grandfather. Never mind. Sorry.
And so young talent. And I wanted people to feel something. Yeah. I wanted Groom Guy to be sleek. I wanted it to be modern. I wanted it to speak to men from all across the globe, essentially.
Yeah, it's very simple, and but in simplicity, there's genius, and there's something genius about it. And like I said, I like to think I'm a logo expert, because I've spent lots of time criticizing or being critical of logos and coming up with logos. And good job. And
Yeah,
how did you go ahead? I'm sorry. Go
I was
ahead.
going to say, just for the people that don't understand how important a logo is, it really is the essence of your brand promise. It tells you what the expectations are going to be for you as a customer. So, it's so important. Like our no vacancy logo, we're trying to highlight old school hotel signs because it has a particular type of fun energy about it. And Darius, you did the same with your group, with your branding, really understanding that it's sophisticated and sleek and upscale, and then having that. Oh yeah, and producer Suzanne is saying, describe it for the non-viewers. Duh, most people listen to us. So yeah, you've got the word groom in a particular font, then a pair of scissors and guy, and it just works, right, Darius?
Yeah, I want to speak to something, gentlemen, that was timeless, right?
Yep.
We know timeless brands. So
What's your website so people right now at this moment could go and look as they're listening?
please, you can visit groomguy.com. That's www.groomguy.com.
And did you have to pay for that, or was it open, or would somebody already have that?
This was open season.
That's shocking.
Shocking, right? And look, I had to make that call to a lawyer and a friend of mine and said, hey, we need to snatch this up. We need
Yep.
this
is So how did you get the relationships with the hotels initially?
Right.
How did you make that happen?
A lot of it, for me being an outsider and not having traditional experience, was trying to really show and prove, right? And so I had to take kind of the knowledge that I had in business and create a presentation to a client of mine, because I've been a hairstylist for 7 years. And so I had a client who worked in real estate. And I was able to share my vision about what I wanted to do. And thankfully, he was able to make a connection with the folks at the hotel. And yours truly was young. This is also kind of at the height of the pandemic as well. So they were trying to find unique ways. They're trying to find selling points that allow them to create a story. And I said, look, if you guys can give me 4 months to do a pop-up, and if you don't like it, we can pack up and we can take this home. But 4 months turns into 8, which turns into 2 years.
Wow. That's fantastic. And do you have pictures, Glenn, that we can pull up so we can see his spaces? Or
I have something. Just give me a minute to figure that out while we talk.
So when was the first moment when you were either a little boy or maybe older when you're like, I'm going to be cutting hair for a living?
Sure. So I am 32. So I would say I started at 20, probably like 25. 24 or 25. I remember I had vivid memories of my grandfather, I'm sure we've all had, that connection of going to the barbershop at a young age. I was fascinated at the place. I was fascinated at the knowledge that I was able to obtain, the experience growing up in Brooklyn, New York.
Wait, no, we didn't talk about that. Where in Brooklyn were you from?
I am from Sunset Park, Brooklyn.
Cool.
Yep. Raised there and also raised in Bay Ridge.
Oh, yeah, we talked about that. Yeah.
I grew up in Sheepshead Bay and spent a lot of time in Bay Ridge. And actually, when I was a little baby, we lived in Bensonhurst, actually. So, Spumoni Gardens.
Yes. Yep. Spumoni Gardens. And, listen, that area is my backyard, right? Brooklyn is home.
Yeah. So do you remember the barbershop? It was a barbershop in Brooklyn?
Yeah, there was a barbershop in Brooklyn named Melvin's. And, this is at a time in the 90s where like all you had was the owner's name. So he would take the name, right, and then just throw barbershop. So whether it's Melvin's barbershop or Tom's barbershop, somebody had it, right?
Right.
Wow. That's a very cool space. I like it. It's very nice. It's kind of the logo backs up the space.
Thank you.
Absolutely love it. But so it really started. So when you were 18, 19, 20, did you go to school? Did you start another career? And then just said, you know what, screw this is my passion. I want to do this. Tell me how all that came about. Because again, this show is about entrepreneurship as well as it is hotels. And this is the stuff that, I love.
Yes, sir. So I started, I had my career in marketing, brand marketing and a little bit of PR, kind of unconventional. I went to school, a small private college for a year. And shortly then I was working in music marketing. So music marketing is really where I got my knowledge on telling stories, on creating these unique experiences for people. And so from music marketing, it went into touring. I was a tour manager. And so early on, as a tour manager, I was cutting hair. And so I was on the road a lot. And so once I was finished with that career, I said, you know what? I'm back in New York.
Yeah.
Want to do something different. I love this business. Let's get started. And,
well, you have Brooklyn in common with me, and then you have music marketing in common with my friend Glenn. Because believe it or not, he was jamming out in the 80s.
Yeah, I was a music and entertainment writer in the early 90s, but I was also ran a music video editorial studio that focused on hip hop music in the late 90s in New York City. So we worked with Bad Boy and clothing brands like FUBU and stuff like that. It was
because when you look at Glenn, don't you say hip hop?
Come on, man.
Close. Yeah.
Get some Adidas going, celebrating 50 years. I love it.
For sure. It was great. And I remember back then when you talk about music marketing and stuff, we worked with then named Puffy, right, in the early days of Bad Boy. And he was did the Street Squad and he got all the kids to come out and really promote the stuff at the street level with people from the communities he was selling to. And it really transformed his ability to communicate with an audience and, really helped him blow up, professionally. I mean, yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. But back to you, Darius, because this is your story today. So was it easy or relatively more difficult after you had that first property, then to go ahead and parlay your success there into the PGA National Resort? How'd that come about?
I think definitely that was much more of a bigger challenge. You have a name, with that prestige behind you, and you're the first to do it. It did add a little bit of pressure. Thankfully, the same owners of yours truly, they're also in line with what's going on over at PGA. So we were able to kind of work with what we have, and we've already had an existing relationship with ownership. So there was a lot of, some room of flexibility in terms of some creative freedoms that we were able to initiate. I think the biggest challenge is always, like many of us, when we're spreading to a different location, is how do we make sure that the brand is consistent, right? How do we create brand consistency? I'm sure, both Glenn and Anthony, you both know this, right? How do we make sure that the language, the service is on par? Right. And how do we fill those gaps? And so that, I would say, was what was the biggest hurdle.
What's your mission statement for the company?
So the mission statement is this: we want to be the men's grooming brand of choice. We believe that through community, we can positively impact the people through effective service, through luxury products, and
So the work ethic that you have doesn't always translate to people you hire. Have you had those issues?
Yes.
Right. And the quickest way to build your brand is make sure you identify that issue, immediately cut it off quickly, or it will destroy your brand. And also, just from my perspective, is the way you build a brand is your foot never comes off the gas. Like every little thing that is important to you is important. And if that takes 10 visits to each property or whatever, there's two gentlemen that I admire. One runs a hotel company, one runs a restaurant company. And the gentleman that runs a restaurant company in New York City runs probably 40 or 50 restaurants. Nobody knows his name. He works out of a Lexus and a driver. And he's in his restaurants almost every day, every single day. Matter of fact, I was in a meeting, I was having dinner, and I walked into his restaurant. I looked at the floor, and I was like, "This is a Simon restaurant." And I went to the hostess and said, "Is this a Simon restaurant?" She goes, "Yeah, how'd you know?" I said, "I looked at the terrazzo floor. It's kind of his signature." But my point being is, any restaurant I go to on any day of his that I happen to be in, I say, "Hey, have you seen Simon today?" And they're like, "Oh yeah, he came in this morning," or "No, he'll be here in 10 minutes." Like every single time, never once has somebody said, "No, I haven't seen him in a long time." That's, it's that. And he's built this incredible brand, and he's probably the most successful restaurateur in New York City, and nobody knows him.
And that's kind of the pathway we want to be on. The same idea. If I have to travel, whether it's to Florida or going to DC, right, I have to make those hard calls and those decisions.
And I will say I had to fire somebody once, and that was one of the hardest things I think I've ever had to do, and it really broke me up. Even though it had to be done, it's not an easy thing to do. Anthony, did that ever get easier for you over your career?
There's a couple things. One, if it gets easy, you shouldn't be in this business. You shouldn't be in business. You should be you're a soulless person. It never gets easier. But one of the things you start to realize is you didn't fire them. They fired themselves.
Right. True.
And you're doing them a favor, especially if you're working with someone that doesn't take his foot off the gas, because the team doesn't take their foot off the gas. I just had this conversation with an owner of a company, and you have to have like-minded people. You're doing them a favor. So in the beginning, I would say for years, many years, and I'm a crier. I would cry every time.
Yeah.
And then I stopped crying because I was like, you know what? I care, but I'm doing you a favor. And I'm not going to let you take my team down.
Yeah.
And I'm also concerned of the perception when you fire somebody of the rest of the team. And then somebody said to me, I was having a really tough time with this one termination, or as I say, they're promoting them to customer. You can come in, but you can't work here. And I remember somebody saying, Anthony, people want to know this. Does it affect their schedule, and does it affect their paycheck? At the end of the day, it doesn't matter. Okay, they'll call the person probably for a couple of days, and then probably everybody moves on. But most people know it's for the better. And if you fire someone without cause, it will come back and bite you in the ass.
Yeah.
So no, it doesn't get easier. It's just different, and you start to learn why you need to do it.
Darius, what's the most unexpected, challenging aspect in your journey so far that you've come across?
Unexpected challenge.
Yeah.
Cash flow.
Yeah. Always, right? Always. No, but to your point, Anthony, yeah. I mean, right? You can project and you can budget as much as you can, only to realize that things come up. Right. And you have to do your best to prepare for it. But the other challenging part of it.
It sounds like what you're saying is it's like when I got this house, nobody told me that every month something's going to break and you're going to be in it for X amount of dollars every single month. Right. It's the same kind of philosophy. Right.
Yeah. That's one you're right. That's one challenge. I can also attest that people is also the other challenge, because you can hire someone.
Wait. Are you saying people's challenge in the hospitality business? This is.
This little thing, small thing component of hospitality, right?
Yeah, it's rough.
Is team building, right?
Mm-hmm.
I can have someone that and have an interview and share the vision and really make them feel like they're a team player, only to find out that some was in business for themselves, right? And have this very singular view and individual view of well, I just need to do for me,
right?
And I'll be on my way. And so that was discouraging, having those early on, those encounters. But I realized something. I said, you know what? It's kind of like Apple. I got a quote from a friend of mine who said, when it comes to companies like Apple, you're either Apple or you're not.
Right.
And so it's the same idea with Groom Guy. You are either Groom Guy or you're not. And if you want to be, there's going to be steps to it to earn that spot, because we want to be a luxury brand. So if I have to set that margin high, then so be it. And if I have to be the example in terms of high performance, I'll do so.
Right. And since you'll be running places that you can't see every day, one of the things that my friend did in the restaurant business is he made the chef a partner, a small percentage partner, but he's the only person I've seen really successful at this level. And I really think the difference is the person in the front of the house and the person in the back of the house have skin in the game.
Yeah.
And, that's not for everyone, but I was like, wow, that really, really, really works for him. And, but even then people are like, well, it's not big enough. Or listen, as soon as you get successful, everybody thinks you're making a tremendous amount of money and you're building your house on stacks of hundreds. They don't see all the expenses. So let's go back a little bit. And so if somebody comes in, because I know a lot of people in the industry. Glenn is the industry. No one in this industry, anybody tells you, maybe Chip Rogers, but outside Chip Rogers, if anybody tells you people know more people than Glenn, and I will say he's very close second to Chip, is not good. So the first thing I would do is I would work with Glenn to get you connections. But if we're talking to someone, if I happen to be talking to somebody, do they build out the space for you Is it a renting space? Is it your share the revenue space? Do they take care of marketing with you? How's all that work? Because there are people that own hotels that are listening right now.
So we've been able to start out in the beginning to customize it to a leasing agreement that is, is a revenue share. So, we essentially set up our spaces, and at the end of the month, based off of sales and retail, the hotel gets a percentage of that. And then ongoing throughout that process, they work with us together to put together a market strategy, both a PR strategy that speaks to both brands. And we've seen that be successful at yours truly. And we're continuing ongoing to work that at the PGA Resort.
Who pays for the build out?
Say again?
Who pays for the build out of the space?
The hotel.
Okay. That's a really key component.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's why you're able to kind of get more of these going, because that's very key. I knew the answer to the question, but I just want to make sure.
I think that's great. That's something I never would have thought of. That's why I love. That's why I love how you have all that great operations experience. Darius, you made the point about the marketing portion of it. That's so essential. We know, we do a lot of food and beverage marketing here in the business, but we don't focus so much on those other elements. So I love that the hotel can add that aspect to it and make it part of their overall package of appeal to customers as well. That's going to work out really well, I think, for you guys.
Yeah. We've been able to see that, especially in a place like DC, where it's metropolitan, that you have about 60% that are going to be locals. So you have 60% of locals coming to your hotel. And the question we started to ask ourselves is, how do we turn those who come to Groom Guy into full customers at the hotel space, right? Do we do a rewards package? Do we, have these other features? So.
Yeah, that makes sense because they have a restaurant over there and a bar over at that hotel. So by, again, connecting better with the neighborhood, they're going to see food and beverage sales, overnight stays, people doing weddings there, et cetera, et cetera.
Yep.
Yeah. And getting in touch with the customer before they come into the hotel is critical. How many times, what is the most common thing that a guest asks for that may not be what you guys do when they come in and go, "Oh, do you do this?" and you don't do it? What's the one thing?
Blowouts. Believe it or not, we'll have a female client base that comes in and inquires and essentially will ask for services. That's been a popular one.
So why don't you do that?
Honestly, because we find ourselves wanting to frame our business. Well, I'll say this. There's salons, female salons all throughout the neighborhood, literally across the street, down the street, around the corner. And we realized in our pocket of where we are, there wasn't services that catered to men. Mm-hmm. So you essentially, yes, we could add on that service, but then we would have to find the talent for it. Who's able to do it? What days do they want? And how does that stretch the Groom Guy framework? Do we now have to communicate that and put that on our website? Right. Or is it easier to say, you know what? There's a salon that caters to that service down the street. Let's build a rapport with them. Let's work with them, have a relationship with them, right? In some capacity, that could be fruitful for both of us.
So Darius, what you're really saying, Darius, is that you have a keen understanding of the core tenets of your brand, and you need to stick with that. Sorry, Anthony.
And no. And I was going to say, I was going to ask a second question. Then I'm going to come back to what you just said. Do people come in for shoe shine and say, "Hey, do you shoe shine?"
No,
men don't do that. Okay, interesting. But what I love,
we all wear sneakers these days. You don't need them shined anyway.
No, some 50-year-olds who think they're 18 wear sneakers. Well, actually, it's getting to the point. It actually is getting to the point where everybody my age is wearing sneakers, but me.
Well, my feet hurt.
Yeah. Wear Mephisto and you won't, because they like sneakers. But anyway, the reason I asked that question specifically was to give a lesson to people building a brand, right? And my brand is authenticity. Don't hire me if you don't want my opinion, because you're going to get it. Mm-hmm. And even sometimes when I don't want to give it, I say to myself, well, that's my brand. And if I don't give it, I'm going against my brand. So I love the fact, as Glenn pointed out, that you're staying close to your brand, because, again, one of the things that people don't think about, they think about, we can make more money doing blowouts because your business could probably even be you can probably open up a store in a hotel, in a fancy hotel, call them Blowout, and you can probably make a living doing that. So the fact that you know your business, but you also said then there's scheduling, then there's talent, then there's a whole other piece of business. It's like, if you're in New York City, do you need a restaurant in your hotel? Well, if you want to have 80% of your brain go to running this little restaurant that's not going to make any money, the answer is yes. But if you know that you're in New York City and everybody wants to be outside the hotel, the answer is no. You have to know your brand. So, kudos to you for knowing your brand.
That's so important. I had to put that into practice recently. Someone asked another popular question: why don't you guys open brick and mortar? Why isn't there a Groom Guy brick and mortar? Because essentially that's a whole nother business.
Because the hotel pays for the build out.
A build out and cocktails from time to time, and
listen. You're doing it where you need to walk before you run, right? It's you, whether it be Oprah, whether it be whoever you think about that's been very, very successful, right? They've all had cash flow issues. They still have cash flow issues, right? Because each business has to run itself, and they don't mix businesses. So until you can run, and the way you run a business is you came in being the talent, you know how to cut hair. Number two, you go in a hotel where there are guests, where there are customers, and number three, the hotel pays for the build out. So your cash flow up front is limited, your exposure is limited. And all you have to do is prove your concept, which is a big step. And you can focus on what you should be focusing on: the logo, the way it opens up, the talent. And then when 3 or 4 or 5, and you get an angel investor to come on and say, hey, let's blow this thing up, then you can, as they say, cook with gas, as long as you know how that runs. But, so I admire that. So what do you think about what I just said? Was I off base?
No, that is spot on. That is spot on. We are a young business that wants to walk before we can run. And many times you can do things like this and opportunities are thrown your way, but you have to have the discernment to know when it's time and when it's not, right?
Yeah, 100%. And when people ask me, they never ask why you did a TV show called Hotel Impossible. Why'd you do it? But they say, how'd you get here? And I'm just like, because I didn't have $50 million to market myself. So I figured if I did a concept, me and my partners did a concept and we put it, and somebody liked it, they push a button and all of a sudden I don't need to buy advertising, right?
Right.
So sometimes, most of the times you have to get to build it, you have to get there the cheapest way. Without losing quality. And
then realizing that there is an opportunity here, right? We want to let the hotels know that there is a unique space for this, right? This is a $70 billion industry of the men's grooming. And if we can get in on the ground floor and create something that is low risk, but allows us to have at least three different type of customers under this business model, then I think, as you said, we're cooking with gas here.
But what's really important is that you get someone that is not driven by, this is going to add a lot of money to the bottom line. I'm going to take this space. This is adding another texture to already great environment. This is not going to make the hotel $1 billion, but this is going to add texture. We've all been to hotels where we're like, why do they even have this service? It's losing money, but it's great for, it's a great concept.
Yes. I always say this every once in a while. Like, it's like when you go in a hotel and you look at the gym and you see the treadmill, and you and I both know we're not going to get on that treadmill, right? It's just not going to happen on this business trip. However, if you go in there and take a look at yourself in the mirror and say, man, I probably need to get cleaned up.
Oh, yeah.
I probably need I need to get some products downstairs. I forgot my routine personal care products, right? That's where we come in.
Not only that, but like yours truly has a great weddings business. So these men are coming in for the weddings. The women already have the hair design being done. So why not spruce up your head, your face, all of that kind of stuff?
Did you shave? Do you shave?
We just started, actually. So for quite some time during the pandemic, we stopped on that and was able to realize that, you know what, there's a market for it because there was a market for shaving products. So we just started.
So I like if I don't have business meetings or stuff, or I'm like, I go a week sometimes without shaving. And if I knew I was going into a hotel to do a speech or whatever, and I had like a half a day and knew you guys were there, like if I got a text from you, an email, and said, "Hey, just if you're coming in, Groom Guy does shaves, whatever, or grooming." I would say, "Oh, you know what? Let me give him a try. I have to get there early anyway.
Right.
I might as well go experience that because I've always wanted to experience a shave at a barbershop, and I've never done that.
Yeah.
Even my head, like I want somebody like when it gets kind of a little,
Mhm.
I actually shaved this morning. I'd like to try that experience. So I think the critical thing is getting it out before people show up. And do
Yeah.
you do manicures for men? Probably not.
No, not yet at the moment. But the cool thing about being a young company is we intake a lot of that information, right? And then we go back to the drawing board and say, all right, what do we want to focus on this quarter, or what do we want to focus on this year? And it could be services very well much as that. What's been happening too, gentlemen, that's unique now, especially in DC, is we've been having other hotels in the neighborhood know about us, and they're actually redirecting their client base to Groom Guy.
That's awesome.
Did you ever do a concierge party?
I have not done a concierge.
Oh.
Okay, let me give you the keys to the castle, my friend. Okay, I'm giving you the keys to the castle. Get to know the president of the concierge group,
Le Clay
D'Or in your city. Every city you go in, bring them in for a meeting, and then host one of their dinners or lunches in the hotel. Work with the hotel to do that, and work with your concierge at the hotel. And let me tell you something, they are loyal. So if you get those concierges to really appreciate you because you gave them a free space to have their meetings, they have meetings like once a month. A very good friend of our show, Sarah, used to be a concierge, and my assistant and friend, Kalindra, is also used to be a concierge at a high-end hotel. And they're loyal people, and they will work to get your business to grow.
Darius, we have a private chat box here. You can see I put in the web address for the association for you as well.
Thanks so much.
Yep. All right. Anything else, Anthony? I feel like we got to.
No, it's just it's fantastic. I wish you nothing but luck. I'll throw my cell phone in there, or I'll give it to you at the end. Anything I can do for you, anything Glenn can do for you, we'll do anything we can.
Yeah, we are here, and we'd love for you to go to groomguy.com, groomguy.com. Darius, thanks so much. And like we said, please just hang out for a couple of minutes. Man, I love focusing on entrepreneurs out there because, Anthony, even though it's so hard and we work all the time, it's nothing better than choosing your own destiny and seeing it play out with,
The only thing better is when you give somebody a chance to a shameless plug and say goodbye. It's the only thing that's better.
Oh, what? I did give him a shameless plug. I told him to go to groomguy.com. Did I? Hold on. Did I not just shamelessly plug you? You want to plug yourself, Darius? We brought him back.
You did, my friend. Thank you.
Give it again. Let's make Anthony happy.
No, but he didn't say goodbye.
I said hang tight. We're gonna.
Well, thank you, gentlemen. Yes, groomguy.com.
All right, so I want Anthony to realize whenever you watch any news shows on TV, they never ever say goodbye to people. Ever. Radio talk shows, TV talk shows, none of that kind of stuff. So,
but you do. But for 700 shows, you always say goodbye.
Yeah, but now that we're approaching 800, I'm thinking of changing the policy. All right, Darius, goodbye, my friend. Hang tight. We'll see you in a minute. And hopefully we'll see you guys. We're back with all sorts of new shows and content as we head into conference season. Make sure you catch all of it. Download us on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, SoundCloud, wherever you get your podcasts. We are there. He's at Anthony Hotels. I'm at Traveling Glenn. And if you're listening to us, why not watch us? Watch us on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, etc., etc. All right, Anthony, let's get out of here.
I just like hearing you say shameless plug to them. And I know you plugged them, but I just wanted to hear it.
It's great. Hey, listen, anything to help out an entrepreneur over there. All right, everybody. Yeah, and in the spirit of what we've been talking about today, remember, you've got one life, so blaze on and
be kind to yourself.
See y'all tomorrow.